Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and it is a genuine pleasure to follow the Right Honourable Member for Harlow, who I enjoy so much being on the Education Select Committee with, as well as all of the rest of the colleagues as well. Oh, yes.
I thank the Honourable Lady for the way. Just to say, I didn't see her there. I was so busy looking at the marvellous MP for Colne Valley. So I'm delighted that you, as our member of, as our Select Committee, is also here today.
Very much. We do genuinely get on very well on the Education Select Committee, which is a welcome change from some of the debates that are actually conducted across the House. And I feel sometimes there is this false dichotomy between, the type of education that we're purporting to have here and the type of education that the government are putting forward. And I think there are also so many things to do with the statistics that are used that are simply not true. And it reminds me, Madam Deputy Speaker, of when I was studying A-levels and I was talking to my lecturer about the use of statistics, and they said to me, Emma, you see, statistics are what a lamppost is to a drunken man. Not so much for illumination and more for leaning against. And I think often in debates about education, that phrase comes back to be proven true. Because what we see, what we hear, what we experience, what I experienced as a teacher for 11 years as an infant teacher until 2015 was the cuts to our schools and the impact that the cuts were having. Now, the government can quote some figures and they can sort of, dance around the issue and we can quote figures right back at them. But what are parents saying? What are teachers saying? What are head teachers saying? Because that's where the truth of the matter actually lies. And one of them, for example, in March, 50 primary head teachers from Hull have written to the Secretary of State about funding to ask desperately for more money for the SEN high needs budget. Because in Hull there are as many as 526 children who are aged 4 and under who have been identified as displaying challenging behaviour or SEN. Yes.
Do you agree with me that what we are seeing is schools are going to... Or
I think the Honourable Lady means, does the Honourable Lady agree with me, Rob?
Does the Honourable Lady agree with me that we are seeing schools having to bid for extra funding, and this is a really dangerous direction that we are heading in?
I think you're absolutely right, and I believe that there's so many people in this chamber and across it do have that shared sense of purpose, that shared sense of belief that every child does matter, and I still believe every child matters. But it seems to be getting twisted and distorted along the way. And as I was saying, for the SEN children who are in Hull, they simply don't have the money that they desperately need. I mean, the head teachers wrote to the Secretary of State, they wrote a letter to the Secretary of State back in March, and one of the comments of that letter was that mainstream schools are increasingly having to resort to fixed term and permanent exclusions to deal with challenging pupils. This is despite the best efforts of dedicated staff in schools. There is a feeling that something has to change or schools will implode. Now, we know this from the inquiry that we have just been doing into alternative provision, that there are an increasing number of children being expelled from the system. There are increasing numbers of children being off-rolled. And why is that? That is not because teachers have suddenly become heartless, they suddenly stop caring about the children in their class, but simply because they do not have the resources needed to deal with the different challenges that pupils come to school with. And why have children come into school with increasing challenges? It's an impact of austerity, it's the impact of poverty. What is happening outside of schools is reflected in what is happening inside our schools. Children coming to school hungry, children coming to school after having awful childhood experiences are going to display challenging behaviour, and the schools do not have the resources they need to deal with that challenging behaviour. So what is happening to these children? And I say to the Secretary of State and the Schools Minister, this is a false economy. It is actually going to cost this government more money in the long run. Alternative provision is more expensive. Dealing with interventions for all of these pupils as they go on through their career is going to be more expensive than actually helping and supporting schools at the beginning when they need it. Now, I never thought, Madam Deputy Speaker, that I'd be quoting Estonia as a country that we should look towards in terms of their education system. But in Estonia, at the age of 3 years old, they evaluate every single pupil. and they evaluate every child for issues like learning difficulties or any signs of special educational needs at 3 years old, so that they can put interventions in to deal with this before those children start school. This is something surely that our government should be doing if they actually want to save money. And on the point of saving money, another one of my bugbears while I'm stood up here, Madam Deputy Speaker, is there seems to be a lot of talk from the government about Vice-Chancellor pay at the moment. They seem to be getting very hot under the collar and very worked up about the issue of Vice-Chancellor pay, but not a word about the pay that is going to the CEOs of multi-academy trusts. Do we think that it is right for some CEOs of multi-academy trusts to be getting over £450,000 a year? And you are right to look shocked, Madam Deputy Speaker, you are absolutely right to look shocked. Do we think it's right for CEOs to be getting paid that much money when our schools haven't got enough money for the SEN pupils that are in them? Do we also think it's right on the issue of academies that millions of pounds has gone in related transactions within multi-academy trusts? Do we not think that there could be money saved by actually delving more deeply into the accounts of some academy trusts to actually look at how this money is being wasted and what it is being wasted on? Now, as a new Member of Parliament, I am subject to certain rules which I absolutely support, one of them being I cannot employ anybody I am directly related to, and nor should I. I don't think I should. However, if you are the CEO of a multi-academy trust, you can employ every single member of your family for a number of different roles on whatever salaries that you see fit. Now, that could be a way of redirecting funds actually towards the SEN pupils in Hull that so desperately need it. Now, these head teachers in Hull have asked for an additional £5 million. That is all they're asking for to help give a quality education to every single child in the city. But it's not just about those children. It's not just about the children of SEN. It's the impact it has on every child. Now, I know this because I was a teacher for 11 years. If you've got a child with challenging behaviour difficulties in your class, you need additional resources to help that child. And not only to help that child, but actually to help every single other child in that class as well. Because if you're on your own dealing with a child who has challenging behaviour problems or some sort of, or a learning difficulty, then you are going to end up spending a disproportionate amount of your time dealing with that one pupil to the detriment of every single other pupil in your class. So this isn't just actually about helping the SEN pupils, it's about helping every child. You need the resources there for the SEN children and for every single other child in the class as well. And I get a bit... go on, before I start.
Thank you. Would you also have the concern...
Order. No, the honourable gentleman means, would the honourable lady... Thank you.
Concern also that I have with the recent report of Children's Commission, which talks about the deep north-south divide in education. My own constituency of Manchester Gorton is a stark demonstration of this. All primary schools of 25 and the 5 secondary schools are facing cuts. And when we take into account over half of secondary school pupils are on a free school meals, this means less support for some of the worst off children in our society. This can't be good for our society.
Absolutely not. And interestingly, I was reading the report by George Osborne, which was about education in the North, and he came up with this radical solution of having local bodies responsible for all the schools in one particular local area. Who could have thought of that? Who could have imagined that could be a solution to some of the problems that our schools are actually facing? And I don't agree with the government's rhetoric on what's actually facing our schools and what the education system is like, because the rhetoric that comes out from government, you believe it was all the land of milk and honey, where children were all skipping around, sounding out words at the age of 3 and going on to become incredibly successful individuals. What is actually the reality? The reality is there is a huge skills shortage, one that is going to become even greater as we move on post-Brexit. The other reality, there are 1 in 10 children have a mental health problem, and I believe part of that mental health problem is because of the curriculum and the school system that our young people are put through. What else have we got? We've got a crisis in recruitment and retention. We've got many teachers giving up, as I did in 2015, to go and find a career in something else, as so many of my colleagues are doing as well. And this idea about, we're going to give more money for teachers to teach maths. Well done, great idea. Find the maths teachers first before you promise giving pupils more money to actually study the subject. What else have we got? More looked after children than we have ever had before, because there isn't enough money for our children's services. We've got increasing debt from everybody leaving university. We've got more children being off-rolled, or inverted commas, home educated. We've got alternative provisions full, pupil referral units full to capacity, not enough space for all the demand and children that need to attend them. That is the true record of education of this government. That is the reality with which children are facing. They're letting down so many children, letting down so many parents, and I think it is unacceptable for the government to give the rhetoric out that they have all this number of good and outstanding schools, when actually on the ground what is happening is they are failing our children. So I want to sort of finish my speech by asking everybody here to think about what is our purpose in being here. What do we stand for? What do we value? Because I'm very clear about what my purpose is and what I stand for. It's the same as what I did when I was a teacher for all those years. I stand for every single child in this country, and I will keep opposing this government and the changes that they are introducing, which actually damage the education of the children and damage our children's future. And I'm going to end by quoting my nanny, because as my nanny say, if you pay cheap, you pay twice. And that is exactly what's happening with this government. The lack of money for education is leading to a higher bill in the future for all our young people.
David Evans.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And I'm very pleased to be able to participate in this debate today on schools, although rather disappointed by the opposition's motion. I have a lot of time for the Honourable Lady